I'm the chief of party for the WARIDI project, and my task today is to give you a brief introduction of the project before the main speakers take over. But before we get started, maybe a few things that you need to know about the GoToWebinar platform. Please note the location of the Q&A is at the panel located on the right side of your screen. You can submit questions at any time during the presentations, but questions will not be answered until we hear from all of our presenters. If you are having technical issues, Claire and Dan on our webinar technical team will do their best to help you out, and they will monitor the Q&A box for any issues. I also need to let you know that today's webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sharing the recording next week. You can find the slides and other documents from today's presentation under the Handouts tab on your right. And the recording and related resources will be available on USAID's Water Sector Hub at globalwaters.org. Now, to continue, I would like to recognize the presence of Mr. Ande Karas, the Mission Director for USAID, Tanzania. And Ande will be giving us brief opening remarks for the webinar. I also would like to recognize the presence of Dr. George Rugomera, the Director of Water Resources at the Ministry of Water. And Dr. Rugomera will provide reflections on collaboration between the project and the partners, lessons learned, and best practices from the project. A few words regarding our presenters. We have some excellent speakers today, and each of them will introduce themselves later on during their presentations. There will be two main speakers from WARIDI presenting the two main subjects of the webinar, that is water supply and water governance. And these presentations will be followed by the reflections by Dr. Rugomera, as I said, and thereafter the question and answer session will follow. After the question and answer session, we will get brief closing remarks from our USAID colleagues. We have the contracting officer representative, Francis Mtitu, and also Economic Growth Director, Terhi Mayanen. I will now invite Ande Karas, the USAID Mission Director, to provide his brief opening remarks. Ande, you're warmly welcome.
Great, thank you so much, Bigambo. I'm not sure whether you wanted me to use the video or maybe there are bandwidth issues. I'm happy to continue with audio if that works best, as you advise. But
just go ahead with the video or the audio. I think that should be okay with us.
Okay. So thank you again for the opportunity to share remarks with this very distinguished group. It's really a great honor for USAID Tanzania to have the opportunity to share some of our experience, some of our best practices with such dedicated colleagues as all those who have joined us today. So we say thank you very much, or as we say in Kiswahili, asanteni sana, for sharing this time with us today. Indeed, USAID Tanzania greatly appreciates the partnerships that WARIDI, this great program, has truly deepened with our colleagues, our partners in Tanzania, the Ministry of Water, the Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Agency, RUWASA, with districts and with water basin offices and authorities. These partnerships have truly been the foundation of the success that we're celebrating here today. And indeed, these partnerships will be the foundation for continued work in the months and the years ahead. Here in Tanzania, the water sector is very well structured, very well coordinated, and really provides many examples for our work in other sectors where structure, organization, partnership is concerned. The government of Tanzania's Water Sector Development Program, Phase 2, is the main vehicle here in country for delivering safe water and improved sanitation across this great country. USAID will continue to support the upcoming water sector development program under its phase 3 in the months and years ahead through our future programming. We're very proud under this precursor stage to have reached over 1 million people with WASH activities in communities and schools through our partnership with WARIDI and stakeholders, government and non-government. This is vital indeed for public health improvements and essential as well for sustainable economic growth. There's a saying in Swahili, maji ndio uhai, water is life. And it is truly the case that our investment in WARIDI has touched not only on foundational health improvements, but certainly inclusive and sustainable economic development as well. I wanted to highlight two impacts, one relating to the integration and impact with respect to gender and youth, and secondly, its relationship to the very foundational issue of governance. And I'll be brief. First, with respect to gender integration and youth, and I should say that USAID Tanzania is right now launching its new 5-year strategy, and indeed youth will be the focus of that strategy. So that is to say the work that WARIDI has already done in terms of its foundational work in promoting youth and as well as gender integration has been absolutely critical as we transition into the new strategy. We applaud WARIDI for indeed mainstreaming gender and youth across all components of the activity. We appreciate that WARIDI has provided training to over 200 heads of departments from districts throughout the country to help to support them in integrating mainstreaming gender into district plans and district budgets. As well, WARIDI has designed and managed research on gender social norms, which aim to understand barriers that hinder the participation, the investment, the ownership of women and youth in water management. That research provided very useful, very applicable findings that informed the implementation of the WARIDI activity and future programming here in Tanzania. I recall very well a couple of years ago visiting a district, Kilolo, that's in the Iringa region, a beautiful, beautiful part of Tanzania, and walking in the countryside to visit a water scheme with the district commissioner, a very inspiring woman district commissioner, Asia Abdallah, and the water user associations in Kilolo district saw and felt very much firsthand the great work of WARIDI and really how it really built in that partnership among local level government officials and community ownership, really saw and felt it in action. Second, critically, and I think so important, is the impact that it's had on governance, good stewardship of water resources. Again, in this respect, I want to applaud WARIDI for supporting improved water resources data and information management for decision-making, evidence-based decision-making. WARIDI, as we know, has supported 2 basins with modern science and the use of very modern hydrometeorological equipment. Again, I had the pleasure during Maji Week, that would be Water Week, in Tanzania in December 2019, to assist with the handover of some of that equipment. So again, I just want to, in my brief remarks, just to thank again the WARIDI project, to thank you, Bigambo, for the wonderful partnerships that you have helped us to deepen, particularly with government authorities, the Ministry of Water, RUWASA, district and regional officials, water basin authorities, and indeed communities in this country. I would also like to thank, in addition to the great team, Bigambo's team at WARIDI, a special thanks to Francis and Tito, a great colleague, our superstar here on the economic growth team, with respect to his management of WARIDI and our investments in water development and resource management. And of course, our office director, Terry Maganin, who's been just a terrific leader here at USAID Tanzania in helping us to integrate these critical investments in water together with our investments in conservation, biodiversity, and really across our mission, where we do really resist very deliberately and intentionally stovepiping and be sure that whether it's water, whether it's nutrition, to name but two examples, that the effects, the impacts are across sectors, are multi-sectoral, from health to economic development to governance. And of course, as we say, fostering at the tip of the spear, gender, and in particular youth, a better generation, a better future for Tanzania. Let me as well thank colleagues, of course, from the government, from the Ministry of Water. I know joining us will be Dr. George Rugomera, and thank you so much, Doctor, for the great support by the ministry and the different water offices within the ministry for making this program a great success. With that, again, I thank you very much for the opportunity to address a great group. Thanks for your partnership and support for all of us here in Tanzania. Asante ni sana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy, for the nice and very encouraging words. And so now I will make a quick introduction of the WARIDI activity. Next slide, please. Okay, so briefly, these are the WARIDI contract issues. WARIDI activity is a 5-year project which started in January 2016, and it was originally scheduled to end in January 2021. But due to the COVID-19 pandemic, some activities were delayed. Hence, the contract was extended to end of May 2021. The project was designed by USAID to support the government of Tanzania's water sector development program. The project is implemented by Tetra Tech ARD as the primary implementing partner, with support from Winrock International as a sub-partner, focusing specifically on water supply and sanitation interventions. We also had 3 other sub-partners, and these are Resonance Global, who were supporting public-private partnerships. Iris Group was responsible for ensuring gender and youth inclusivity in all project activities. And finally, we had the Water for Life Solutions, who was focusing on decision support systems on water resources management and working very closely with the Tanzania's river water basins of Rufiji and Wami-Ruvu. As part of the project, we also had a grants component implemented by Tanzania local civil society organizations and 2 basin boards as our partners. The grants covered 3 major areas. One was sanitation. Under this, WARIDI supported the national sanitation campaign through the Ministry of Water, through the Ministry of Health, to ensure open defecation-free communities within the country. The second area was the capacity building for community-based institutions that are involved in management of water supply schemes. And lastly, was the support for improvement of water resources, data, and information management for the 2 basin boards. Our local implementing partners included the basin water boards, the 2 basin water boards, as I mentioned, local government authorities, and communities. With the introduction of the new water law of 2019, RUWASA was established, and they are our counterparts in implementation of the water supply schemes. Next slide, please. Okay, so we move on to project components. First of all, I look at the major objective of the WARIDI activity, which was to improve management of water resources and water-related services. To achieve this, 4 components areas were identified, and these are: number 1, wash services. This focused on increasing access by target communities to sustainable multiple-use water, sanitation, and hygiene services. Number 2 is governance, and this was looking at strengthening governance skills among institutions involved with the water resources management for sustainable and resilient management of water resources and services. Note that these 2 components are actually the main subject of our today's webinar. Component number 3 is private sector, and this focused on improving household livelihoods through supporting private sector opportunities in sustainable water services, small-scale agriculture, and natural resources management. We had a fourth and last component, which was cross-cutting, and this looked at gender integration and youth inclusion. Next slide, please. Okay, so this one shows the geographic coverage of the WARIDI project. The project targeted 20 local government authorities or districts within the Wami-Ruvu and the Rufiji river basins, within the southern agricultural corridor of Tanzania, that is SAGOT. You can see on the map those two basins. The one on top is Wami-Ruvu, and the one below is the Rufiji. And the two parallel pairs of lines, they mark the area of the SAGOT. So all the districts that fell wholly or partly within these two basins and within the SAGOT were the target of this project. So you can see this is a relatively large area. And to give you a quick picture of the scale, Rufiji Basin is the largest basin among the 9 river basins in Tanzania. And it covers about 20% of the Tanzania land area. And together with the Wami-Ruvu Basin, they cover close to 30% of Tanzania's land area, which is equivalent to the size of Rwanda and Burundi combined. So in addition to that, the target area also is covers the two government capitals of Dar es Salaam and Dodoma. Now, as you can see, the target was 20 LGAs, but within two basins and the SAGOT area, there are more than 60 districts. So we had to find a way of selecting the districts, and we followed a demand-driven approach. And here we invited a number of LGAs, almost all, to submit applications in an agreed format. And we jointly set our selection criteria with the basin boards and LGAs. And then a multidisciplinary team of WARIDI staff evaluated the application and recommended the best performers. So I think I will end up here now and let our presenters take over. And I would like to start with Megan on the water supply part. Megan, please, karibu sana.
Great. Thank you, Bigambo. So hi, everyone. As Bigambo mentioned, I'm Megan Melke with Windrock International, and I served as the Water and Sanitation Technical Advisor on the project. So today I'm going to start us out by talking about WARIDI's approach to sustainable water access and how the project worked to construct and rehabilitate water supply systems. Next slide. So first, I'd like to remind everyone of a statistic that I'm sure we're all very familiar with, that approximately 30% of rural water points are not functioning at any given time. And this is true for Tanzania, as shown in the recently published Water Sector Status Report by the Ministry of Water. And it's also known to be similar in other countries as well. And this is for a few different reasons, including construction issues or design issues, lack of operations and maintenance, or social issues, including conflict or non-payment. So on WARIDI, we focused on rehabilitating non-functional or minimally functional systems that were not operational for many of these same reasons. For example, on this slide, you'll see Mgama scheme and their storage tank, which was built in the 1970s on the right. In 2017, when we assessed this scheme, the system was already past its design period and was unable to serve the current population. So WARIDI built a new storage tank, which you can see on the left of the picture, and extended the system to additional hamlets. We also encountered systems built as recently as 2015, but were never operational due to design flaws. And of course, on other systems we rehabilitated, there were operations and maintenance issues such as pipeline maintenance and pump replacement, among others. Next slide. So to address these issues, WARIDI focused on 3 aspects of implementation: community buy-in, quality assurance and quality control, otherwise known as QA/QC, and capacity building. Over 5 years, WARIDI rehabilitated, extended, or constructed 55 water supply schemes serving approximately 500,000 people. Our interventions included schemes that serve anywhere from 2,000 to 28,000 people and were both rural and peri-urban. Peri-urban interventions were implemented in partnership with the Iringa Urban Water and Sanitation Authority, or IRAWASA, and account for around 50,000 of our total beneficiaries. The approach was slightly different in peri-urban areas, and over the next few slides, I'll be primarily speaking about our approach for rural water schemes. Next slide. So starting out, we have getting community buy-in. So to ensure sustainability, WARIDI worked closely with communities and involved village leaders from the beginning of the project, which would be scoping, all the way to the end, or commissioning the actual finished water supply scheme. Final selection of each scheme was demand-driven, and communities had to be willing participants and desire the water project. Partner communities signed memorandums of understanding, where they agreed to meter water points, set realistic tariffs, and provide in-kind and cash contributions. Some water projects cover 5 or more villages, so this took quite a bit of cooperation. WARIDI had a fully staffed engagement team that worked with each construction project to support the community and engage them from start to finish. They also managed and resolved any conflicts as they arose. The district, village government, contractors, and community-owned water supply organization, or CAUSO, were party to these MOUs. CAUSOs, which are now known as CBWSOs, or community-based water supply organizations, are legally registered bodies that own and operate rural water supply systems. On this slide, you'll see an MOU being signed for Miki scheme in Kilombero District with the Kilombero District Commissioner, Ward Executive Officer, and the Kilombero Ruwasa Manager. The project also held weekly site meetings that were more contract focused. They reviewed the work plan, discussed any delays in the schedule, and involved local leaders and the CBWSO. Monthly meetings were held with the larger community that went over general progress, in-kind contributions, and work schedules. They were a forum to solve conflicts and also prepare the community to set and approve water tariffs. Next slide. One of the major contributions each community made involved in-kind contributions, which are standard in rural water supply in Tanzania. This was in addition to cash contributions, which in most cases were calculated based on the number of public water points constructed or rehabilitated. Contribution levels were around 250,000 Tanzanian shillings per water point, about $100 US, and this money was placed into the CBWSO's bank account as a starter fund for the water scheme. In-kind contributions included excavating trenches, laying pipes, and backfilling. Overall, this was more than 460 kilometers of pipeline, or about 285 miles of pipeline for all of our rural schemes. Communities also supported carrying, loading, and offloading materials, and also storing and securing materials. During learning reviews, community members said that these in-kind contributions and other involvement throughout the different project phases made them feel more ownership over the scheme and increased their desire to see it succeed. Next slide. Secondly, we have QA/QC, and here we'll start off with quality assurance, where our team focused on design and procurement. For design, we ensured that scoping involved the community, local government, and RWASA, and each design was reviewed internally and also shared with the district and regional managers for their review and concurrence. RWASA is an agency that was formed recently under the Water Supply and Sanitation Act of 2019, and prior to that, we worked with the District Water Office. Under procurement, we purchased some of the materials directly, rather than including them in the construction subcontract. This included pipes and fittings and submersible pumps, and allowed the project to ensure quality materials were provided for each scheme. Pipes and fittings were purchased directly from manufacturers in country, and we had HDPE and PVC pipes tested by a third party to ensure that they met Tanzanian and international standards. WARIDI also purchased submersible pumps from the manufacturer's representative in country, in addition to other materials like cement. On the left of this slide, you'll see a team taking a sample of HDP pipe during an inspection at a manufacturer's warehouse. Next slide. On the other side of the coin, we have quality control, and each scheme we worked on had close supervision, including on-site monitoring by an intern engineer. To do this, WARIDI developed an internship program for recent graduates to gain practical experience in site management. Young graduate engineers lived in the same villages where construction took place and oversaw daily monitoring of the site for quality control. In addition, they reported on environmental compliance and health and safety. The interns were each equipped with an Android tablet, and they filled out daily reports using a mobile survey. These reports were then emailed to the lead engineer of the site in addition to various staff on the project. Reports included extensive detail and pictures for follow-up. Each project also had a lead engineer assigned by WARIDI who would mentor the intern and provide oversight on the contract, directly supervising all major works. This lead engineer would be paired by a visiting WARIDI engineer to complete any inspections and progress payments to ensure that all subcontracts were handled transparently. Throughout this whole process, we also worked closely with RUASA and the community who were there to supervise and inspect works as well. Next slide. And lastly, we focused on building capacity. This mainly involved training CBWSOs in partnership with RUASA, where we provided them necessary operations and maintenance tools and ensured that the CBWSOs have a good relationship with the RUASA for ongoing technical support after the project closes. Pictured here is the CBWSO office for IKELA scheme. Next slide. Over the life of the project, WARIDI trained CALSOs, or now CBWSOs, for all rural water schemes it implemented, some of which were clustered under a single management umbrella. An additional 250 CALSOs were supported under WARIDI's grants program. Our support ranged from assessing capacity at baseline and endline, formation and registration of the CBWSO, training on water use permits, financial management, tariff setting, operations and maintenance, governance, climate change adaptation, and gender integration and youth inclusion. In addition to training, we also provided practical technical support to calculate tariffs and get them approved, develop financial registers and payment systems, and develop operations and maintenance plans. Climate change, adaptation, and gender integration and youth inclusion were modules that WARIDI developed directly and added to the pre-existing government training guidelines. After the Water and Sanitation Act of 2019 went into effect, WARIDI supported the formation of 18 CBWSOs per the new guidelines. In this slide, a RUASA engineer is walking a CBWSO through setting tariffs, which must then be approved by the village in a general meeting. Next slide. On another note, WARIDI also supported some innovative pilots along the way, including smart metering through a partnership with eWaterPay at 2 sites, and you can see this in the top left photo. There are many benefits to the smart meters, including improving revenue collection, increasing accessibility to the water points for up to 24 hours a day, saving the CBWSO from employing water point caretakers, which can be quite difficult for some rural schemes, and using water more efficiently. However, startup costs were high to install the meter, and financing options need to be developed to allow CBWSOs to purchase and install them on their own. We also piloted water disinfection and treatment approaches through a partnership with Medintech to install Aquatab's flow and Aquatab's inline systems at one of our sites. And all other rural sites, WARIDI installed drip chlorination systems for water disinfection, which you can see in the bottom left-hand picture. Based on various follow-up assessments, we found that drip chlorination can be an effective water disinfection approach, but the CBWSOs require additional support on water quality monitoring, chlorination, and procurement of supplies. Next slide. And just to close out, some of the challenges that the project faced included similar challenges that were mentioned at the start of the presentation, and these will require continued support from RUASA. The first is sufficient local capacity for operations and maintenance. At many schemes, there's insufficient capacity for operations and maintenance, and CBUSOs struggle to properly operate their systems. However, under the new Water Act, each CBWSO is required to hire a certified technician, and in some cases, RWASA is providing this technician directly for larger schemes. For example, one of our former interns who supervised one of our largest schemes is now employed by RWASA to manage that same scheme. It serves about 35,000 people in Kilombero District Council. Secondly, setting sustainable tariffs and collecting adequate revenue. So while we work to calculate and set sustainable tariffs, CBWSOs still struggle to enforce tariffs and collect revenue. The COVID-19 pandemic and recent elections also made this difficult for CBWSOs to implement. A third challenge is metering gravity schemes. While all the schemes that we constructed or rehabilitated were metered, many gravity schemes are not using their metering system, while pumping schemes are. The perception that gravity-fed water should be free is still very pervasive. Sensitization is needed on the true cost of water supply operations and maintenance, as gravity schemes normally have to maintain several kilometers of pipeline, which can be costly. Following on this, there is a push for private connections in many places, especially on gravity schemes where water rates are low, and this can overburden systems when not done properly. CBWSOs and RWASA are also under pressure to extend schemes to underserved populations, which if not done correctly can damage the functionality of the system. And lastly, RWASA is a new agency and it requires additional staffing and budget to enable it to properly support CBWSOs. Innovative approaches to operations and maintenance and large-scale repairs and extensions still need to be explored. Next slide. So thank you all for listening, and I look forward to your questions at the end of the presentations. Next slide.
Okay, so thank you very much, Megan, for a very good presentation. I now call upon Asha to provide the next presentation. Asha, please, welcome.
Thank you, Bigambo. My name is Asha Msoka. I'm an integrated water resources management specialist. And with the WARIDI project, I served as the Water Resources Management Coordinator. Today, I'll take you through the experience and successes as we implemented activities planned for improving water governance. Next slide, please. So for everyone here to get some understanding and easily grasp the concept of water governance in Tanzania, I will quickly take you through the Water Resources and Water Governance Institutional Framework as per the Tanzania's Water Resources Management Act enacted in 2009. So at the very top, we have the Minister of Water, who is responsible for the national policy and strategy formulation with regard to water. And he is the one responsible for appointing members of the National Water Board, establishing the basin boards, just to mention a few. So the Minister of Water, in the discharge of his duties, he's assisted by the Director of Water Resources. As Bigambo already pointed out, Dr. Rugomera is with us today, and he will give his remarks later. So below the minister, we have the National Water Board. This is an advisory board that advises the minister on issues regarding water resources management. We also have basin boards. In our country, we have 9 basin boards, and the WARIDI project focused on 2 boards, the Wami-Ruvu and Rufiji. So quickly to give you a picture, these basin boards' powers and functions include preparing integrated water resources management development plans, to collect, to process and analyze data for water resources management, to maintain and adapt, update assessment of the available water and the potential demand. They are also responsible for approving, issuing and revoking water use and discharge permits. They also monitor and enforce water use and discharge permits to control pollution and overuse. We also have catchment and sub-catchment committees. At the very bottom, we have water user associations. So these are the entities at the community level. They are formed by the agreement of the majority of a group of water users. They, in a situation where they function properly, they manage, they distribute, and they conserve water from source that is shared. They are very also instrumental in acquiring and operating permits. They, on behalf of the basin boards, collect water user fees, to mention a few. So from my standpoint, we have a very good policy, legal, and institutional framework for effective management of water resources. But why are we not getting there? To the next slide, please. Yes. Based on different assessments, stakeholder discussions, consultation meetings with the two basin boards and the Directorate of Water Resources, the key water governance issues include: 1, limited capacity of the National Water Board in different areas like integrated water resources management, gender, and climate. Another issue is inadequate funding and human resources for these basin boards to perfectly perform their day-to-day roles. And another issue at the institutional level is the low capacity of water users associations. As I explained earlier, they are very instrumental in water resources management. As you heard, Wami-Ruvu and Rufiji combined, they make 30% of the Tanzania's land. It means these basins are very huge. So in a situation where we have these associations and working properly, it means they help a lot in water resources management. So other key issues in water governance include water resources overexploitation. This is largely contributed by illegal water use, low agricultural water use efficiency, and increased demand. We also have the water quality degradation issue, which is largely caused by inadequate control and monitoring of discharge, sedimentation due to deforestation and overgrazing. We also have water quality degradation due to non-point and point source pollution that is unmanaged. The other governance issue in water resources management also include insufficient hydrometeorological data to properly decide on the resource. As I explained, one of the board's power and function is to issue, to revoke water use and water discharge permits. Now, without good information on the available and the expected demand, how can these basin boards manage to properly allocate and monitor the water resources? So, next slide, please. To address these issues, WARIDI intervened by strengthening capacity of the National Water Board, the Rufiji and Wami-Ruvu Basin Boards, and 10 selected water user associations, each from the 2 basin boards. WARIDI also supported improving data and information management for decision making, a topic that I'll go into detail in a few minutes. WARIDI also supported and intervened in adopting integrated water and land management planning approaches, as well as improving capacity in climate change vulnerability and resilience. Next slide, please. So a bit into detail regarding strengthening management capacity. At the National Water Board level, we supported at least 2 board meetings, field visits, and trainings to the National Board members. At the Basin Boards level, we supported convening of multi-sectoral stakeholder forums. For the case of Wami-Ruvu, we supported all the required multi-sectoral stakeholder forum meetings that reviewed the integrated water resources management and development plan. For the case of Rufiji, where we found they already had their IWRM plan in place, we supported the board meeting that endorsed it and few multi-sectoral stakeholder forums to discuss plans of implementing the IWRM plan. We also, support has been given also to raise awareness and kind of increase interest to journalists from 10 prominent media houses so that they can start covering water resources management related news, and not just covering, but properly covering them. So to date, we've conducted trainings, we've supported journalist field visits, and also we've supported the 2 Basin Board officials to air out or to reach out through radio and television with the message of IWRM. We've been supporting the Kipi Majoto ITV program, which reaches close to 5 to 10 millions when it is aired through the television itself, radio, and their different digital formats. So the other area that WARIDI also ventured in supporting the 2 Basin Boards was supporting them to identify their users by using a new tool, which is called mWater, which in a way simplified reaching to many people at a short time with the little resources they have. So the other area, as I said, we've supported improving the Basin Board's capacity in hydromet data and information collection, processing, analysis, and generally the management of data for decision making. Next slide, please. So to get a little deeper into the data and information for decision making, most of these 2 basins have national pressure on various issues. For a start, the 2 Basin Boards fall under the Saltcoast corridor. The 2 Basin Boards in most cases have consumptive uses at the upstream part, but another priority uses at the downstream part. For example, with most of our national parks at the downstream, while the Water Act provides that apart from the domestic water use, the second in priority is environmental uses, which also include national parks. But unfortunately, in most cases, the national parks are at the downstream part, while the consumptive uses are at the upstream. And again, with the great national hydropower projects in the Rufiji, for example, where again, with consumptive use at the upstream part and the need for hydropower production downstream. So with this kind of situation, And again, in Wami-Ruvu, it has some flood-prone hotspots, which needs good data, good quality data for decision making, for flood risk management, and for making sure that the environment is also well taken care of. So in improving the data and information for decision making, priority was given to selected stations that, when supported and improved, will give a multiplier effect. Given the financial and human resource limitation, so key stations were selected for improvement, and the recommendations were that progressively the intervention and improvement follows down the levels to the lowest level in priority for these stations. So in this slide, you see a picture of one of our Wami-Ruvu stations, which is at Wami at Mandera, and one of a station, a weather station installed also at that station. Next slide, please. So a support was provided to improve the hydroclimate network, where we've supported the two boats with low-cost weather stations, and also introduced an approach that in a way reduces operation and maintenance costs on the shoulders of the basin boats, and the this cost is shared by partners. We call it citizen science approach. And to date, we've installed 34 stations in Wami-Ruvu and in Rufiji. Through the implementation of this activity, 10 basin board staff have been trained in collecting, processing, analyzing, and preparing information out of this climate data. So we have 40 plus citizen science partners, and in the picture here is one of our stations installed in a close-by school here in Morogoro, and teachers use that station for their geography lessons. Next slide, please. So also in the terms of data and information management, when we started, we found that the two basins had very little activities regarding flow monitoring, which is also was due to limited resources, personnel, and equipment. So the project supported repair of the equipment that were already there, and to initiate the flow routine, the flow measurement routines, and training of the hydrographers on how to properly prepare for field visits, properly conduct field measurements, and properly analyze the data after they come back from the field. So apart from that, we've supported the two basin boards with an in-kind grant that purchased them equipment and softwares and tools worth 2 billion Tanzania shillings. So over the course of improving the surface water monitoring, 16 hydrographers, 8 from each basin, have been well equipped and are now even supporting other basin boards. Next slide, please. Yes. So the Ministry of Water, on advice from WARIDI, selected the Aquarius software for upgrade to an advanced modern rating curve and time series management for their hydrological and meteorological data. So this Aquarius is an advanced and complete water data management system. Among other tools, the software includes a very good rating curve development tool. So to date, the Aquarius software is installed and functioning in the 2 boats, and we are working towards expanding it to all 9 basins. We have in the 2 boats supported improvement of more than 36 rating curves, and using the very software, now these 2 basin boats extract data and prepare monthly bulletins, and also even the Ministry of Water use the data and use the tool to prepare the recently released the hydrological yearbook. So again, in Aquarius, 10 basin board staff have been equipped and they are supporting, and we anticipate and believe that there'll be very a source of knowledge to the other basin that we are expanding these Aquarius to. So to the next slide, please. So few challenges as we implemented the activities. One of the challenge was internet connectivity. We supported the 2 boats with connecting them with the fiber optic cable, but the challenge continued to be the basin offices setting aside budget for internet bundles. Now, with the plan to expand Aquarius to the other basins and have Aquarius operating from a central server at the Ministry of Water, internet at the Ministry of Water and at the National Internet Data Center. Internet is very key. So the Ministry of Water needs to make sure that all the offices are well equipped with good internet connectivity. As we were piloting and implementing the citizen science and the local hydroclimate stations, the challenges have been unreliable power supply, which at some point led to electric shocks and burning of these stations. So the other actually a challenge and a major challenge as we were implementing the water resources management activities have been limited human resources. The standard requirement for managing hydrological stations says at least 12 stations for one hydrologist. So one hydrologist needs to manage 12 stations. But in the case of Rufiji, for example, when we started, we found one trained hydrologist managing 53 plus stations. Now, again, even after equipping the hydrographers to at least a level that they can properly collect, process, analyze, and give products out of data, the other problem has been transfer of the key staff to either other boards or being promoted to becoming basin water officers or to assisting with other national projects like the Nyerere hydropower. So here, the Ministry of Water need to hire additional staff. For a finish, next slide, please. So in collaboration with the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources, the RCMRD from Nairobi, WARIDI also supported climate change studies. which analyzed historical trends, analyzed the vulnerable hotspots, and gave out recommendation for adaptation. Over the course of the project period, different activities have been implemented to support improving the community's resilience. The farmers have been trained, new technologies have been shared with the communities, land use plans have been supported, to just mention a few. To that juncture, I thank you all for listening, and back to you, Bigambo.
Yeah, thank you, Asha, for a very good presentation. I will now call upon Dr. Rugomera to provide his reflections, lessons learned, and also to look at the best practices that he managed to observe from the project. Dr. Rugomera, please welcome.
Thank you, Engineer Bigambo. My name is George Rugomera. I'm the Director of Water Resources with the Ministry of Water. First of all, in terms of the collaboration with USAID through WARIDI project, WARIDI, in collaboration with the Ministry of Water through its Rural Water Agency, or RWASA, has been able to provide water supply services to hundreds of thousands of people in about 20 districts in Tanzania, covering the hydrological areas of Wami-Ruvu Basin and the Rufiji Basin. So the ministry will continue to sustain this support by building more schemes, and of course supporting the sustainability of the same through RWASA. Also, WARIDI supported the preparation of the Integrated Water Resources Management and Development Plan in the Wami-Ruvu Basin. They mainly supported through providing financial support for the stakeholders forum, which were used to validate the findings, but also the deliverables of the IWRMD plan, or the Integrated Water Resources Management and Development Plan. They also supported in the Rufiji Basin for implementation of the same, and the additional work is obviously required in the Wami-Ruvu Basin and also Rufiji Basin in implementation of the plan, because development of a plan is one thing, but also implementation of the plan is a different thing. So we envision that more support is required in terms of implementation of the plan, particularly the Wami-Ruvu Basin plan, which has just been completed. So we have learned some lessons through the WARIDI support. WARIDI provided a lot of support to improve data management, hydrological data management, from collection, processing, storing, and also dissemination of the same. As we know, hydrological data management is very key, or hydrological data is very key to support decisions around several areas of water resources development and investment, hydropower, irrigation, and the others. But there have been a limited budget to our staff to do these works. So the support was very good, and it has improved data management in the two basins. But WARIDI also piloted M-water system, where a lot more water users were registered, and these water users will eventually pay water user fees, and some of the money that the additional money that will be collected will go towards the area of hydrological data management. But the other lesson is on the strengthening of the community-based water supply organizations. These organizations, they need support in a number of areas which have been mentioned in the presentation. And supporting them or strengthening the CBWSOs will actually result in the sustainability of the project, supporting them in management, but also in the whole governance issue of water supply schemes. But the other good lesson is that Luasa managers have benefited a lot from the partnership with USAID, and they are going to continue this work, making sure that the quality work is done through construction of additional water schemes. So the quality work that was done through the WARIDI project will continue, will be continued by Luasa managers in different areas, district managers, as well as regional managers in the construction of additional water schemes. In terms of good practice, we see that improvement of data management and the quality control of the same are very key to water resources management in Tanzania. The future of water resources management depends on the good data and its management, and of course dissemination, so that it can be used by the different stakeholders, but also those who need the data. So through the Aquarius system, which has been very useful in managing the hydrological data in the two basins of Wami-Ruvu and Rufiji. And this Aquarius system was provided by WARIDI through USAID support. We now plan to upscale the Aquarius system to the rest of the 7 basins which we do not have the system, but also at the national level or in the Doma at the Ministry of Water or at the Department of Water Resources, so that all the data collected in the country can be properly managed, but also quality assurance will be done from the national level in the Doma to the basin level up to the sub-basin or sub-catchment level. The other good practice is that we noted that the CBWSOs, as we know, they are key to the success or sustainability of the projects, but the in-kind contribution that was provided by CBWSOs is also key to sustainability, because the communities feel that this is their project, and therefore they have a duty to protect and sustain the project. So in-kind contribution is key, but also in some cases, the community will also to provide financial contributions. All these are very key to the sustainability of the project. And the last one was quality control and the quality assurance of materials. Is very impressive, or it was very impressive that the way WARIDI conducted it. And we are sure that Luasa is going to continue this work. And the quality assurance by a third party on all materials testing is also a very good practice, which the Ministry of Water through Luasa is going to continue it in order to assure that the material used for construction of water supply projects is good quality, meets the Tanzania as well as international standards, and thereby contributing to the sustainability of the entire project. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Over to you, Bigambo.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rugomera, for a very good presentation. So now we'll move on to the question and answer session. We have identified a few questions, and although we may be short of time and will not be able to get to all questions, you can still follow up by email with myself at the email that I've entered into the chat box. You can see it, Bigambo Nandiga at WARIDI. So please feel free to send your questions there. Okay, so the few questions that we have question one. This is from Mohamed Chaban, and he's asking, can you elaborate on the citizen science partners, how they are selected, and what are their responsibilities and the benefits from these stations? And I'll send this question to Asha. So please, Asha, can you provide the answers to this?
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed, for a very good question. The citizen science partners were identified by the basin boards from the basin board communities and members that have stake in water resources data, like schools, plantations, utilities like the waterworks, universities, TANESCO, and the like. So they are people that know about data or need data or use data in one way or another, and they were ready to host the stations, to maintain the stations, and to provide for power and internet if required, and also to share the data that is collected by the station back to the basin boards. So in a way, if I heard clearly, the question was how they are identified and what are their roles, right?
Okay, so thank you very much, Asha. Mohammed, I hope that answers your question. So now let us move on to the next question. This is from Boniface Marwa, and he asks, it is indicated that the cash contributions was set aside in a bank account to be utilized at a startup, as a startup seed for the project. How and at what stage did WARIDI capture the in-kind contribution among the costs to the project to realize the energy or time spent by the community? Megan, I think you can give some light on this.
Sure, yeah. So we tried to calculate the value of the in-kind contributions versus overall costs as we went along. And I don't have the cash contributions separate from in-kind, but total, they were valued at about $1 million US. Most of that was in labor to actually dig the trenches and backfill and lay the pipes and everything. And our overall construction effort, just construction costs, so cost to hire the construction firms, buy the materials on the project, was about $10 million. So that doesn't include our in-house costs of designing the water supply systems, our supervision, staff time, things like that. So just as a ballpark figure.
Thank you, Megan, for the response, and I hope Boniface, that is clear to you. So the next question is from Bruce Aylward, and his question is, what was the degree of co-financing received from local government and the communities for these water systems? I think Megan has responded regarding the communities. So Megan, can you say quickly regarding the local government authorities, please?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Bigambo? The local government authorities' responsibility?
No, the question is, what was the degree of co-financing received from local government and the community? So I said, for the communities, you have already responded. So it's only this first part of the LGAs. So please go ahead.
So the LGAs in rural areas did not finance these projects monetarily. However, they did provide staff time to support us in design review and to support actual supervision. In our peri-urban projects with utilities, the utilities actually paid for trench digging rather than a community in-kind contribution. So there was more of a financial contribution in the urban sector, and that's because of the way it's set up in Tanzania, the way it's normally done. Bigambo, feel free to add on anything.
Yeah, I think that clarifies the situation, Megan. So let's move on to the next question. This is from Mark Detman, and he says, very impressive work. For the engineer's oversight, what were some of the main gaps or challenges of RUWASA? Transportation to visit sites, technical understanding of solar powered systems? So that's the question. Again, Megan, I think you can shed some lights on that.
Sure. Yeah, so our work with the district water office and then RUWASA, the main challenge was transportation, having vehicles to go out to these sites, also having sufficient staff. Some of these offices are very understaffed. Technically, again, some of the offices, each office is different, had fewer engineers or technicians than others. We didn't do too much solar work. We built 10 solar schemes out of the 55 that we built overall. But yeah, Bigambo, feel free to add on if you'd like to that.
Yeah, okay, Megan, I think again you have quite responded to the question, but I think generally RUWASA has had quite a number of challenges, and one of the I think basic one is the generally resources, which includes not only transportation but also staffing. And because actually it is still at a very foundation level, they also admit that the staffing is not yet adequate, and they're in the process of improving that. So I think as time goes on, with the additional staffs, some of these issues will be addressed. Okay, so thank you very much. Let's move on to the next question. This is from Julie Howard, and she says, this is a heavily agricultural area. Is WARIDI also working on water availability for agriculture, that is irrigation? I think I could briefly respond to this. WARIDI has not been involved in water for large-scale agriculture like irrigation. What WARIDI has been doing is to support small-scale household livelihoods activities like gardening, like keeping of small heads, poultry, and therefore the scheme was designed to include some amount of water which would be able to cater for such small-scale agricultural activities, but not for irrigation. I hope that answers your question, Julie. Okay, we have another question that is from Abel Dugange, and asks, happy to hear about the project's engagement with the media houses for wider reach, specifically on WRIM. One major challenge of working with media has always been continuity after the project. Any lessons from the project on this aspect? And I think I would like to throw this to Asha. Please, Asha.
Sorry, Bigambo, can you please reread the question, please?
Yes, the question goes, happy to hear about the project's engagement with the media houses for wider reach, specifically on WRIM. One major challenge of working with media has always been continuity after the project. Any lessons from the project on this aspect?
I'll give it a try, and Bigambo, if you have anything, and the rest of the WARIDI's team anywhere you are, you can chip in and add to it. So it's true, because when we started, we found that some other projects have tried to engage media, but the problem, they said, the journalists, why are they not continuing? Because some other initiatives have been tried to bring on board and to raise their interest in reporting water resources related issues. They said that they like to be reporting and covering, but they lack resources to go out to collect the water resources related activities, because they are not a priority to their editors, because they don't sell as much as the other issues do. So they require support to reach to areas with issues, to collect the information and turn them into news and articles and documentaries. So we've been also showing a way to the Ministry of Water and the basin boards that there is that opportunity of using the media to raise their water resources management profile. And by supporting these journalists, they can win the hearts of the stakeholders and get them to be engaged and involved in water resources management. And the basin boards now are kind of setting aside budget for that. So the basin boards will continue supporting journalists to cover water resources related issues. And at some point, I believe this journalism community will be well saturated with the understanding of water resources management importance to the society, and they will not need the push and support as it needs now. Thank you. Bigambo,
Okay.
if you to that, yeah.
Thanks, Asha. I think you have elaborated it very well. Only to add that what we have done is to sort of institutionalize this activity, so that now the basin boards and the Ministry of Water, they see the good reason of involving the media in raising awareness among the water users. So we can only hope that this will be continued, and Dr. Rugomera is with us and he's listening, and I hope he will make sure that this continues happening. Okay, so let's make progress. Time is also not on our side. The next question is from Mike Morris, and the question is, how well are women and youth represented now in catchment and sub-catchment committees? Previously, the planned committee makeup was very narrowly configured, that is, confined to top-end institutions. Again, Asha, this is your question.
Yes, I would kindly request that after I give my my responses, Director Dr. Rugomera also adds to it. But with the support from the project, we've supported raising awareness, and also on the provision in the Water Resources Management Act, the National Water Policy, which also provides for need to engage women and include youth. We supported also preparation of training modules to water use associations, to catchment refresher trainings on climate change and gender. We supported as well a training to the National Water Board on gender, so that they can, where they see gaps related to gender in water resources management, they can properly advise the minister to make sure that gender is well integrated, and youth are also properly integrated in issues of water resources management. Dr. Rugomera, if you can give more meat to the skeleton, please.
Yeah, thank you, Asha. The Water Resources Management Act emphasizes on representation, particularly of women, in all the decision-making organs, mainly the Basin Water Boards, National Water Board, and the Catchment and Sub-Catchment Committee. Now, the regulation for nomination of board members and the Catchment Committee members provides that 1/3 of board members should be women, and also at the subcommittee level, sub-catchment committee, the catchment and sub-catchment committee level, 1/3 should be women. So it's actually silent on youth, but I think you mentioned the initiative that you took to enhance participation of youth in the water resources management issues. Thank you.
So thank you both, Asha and Dr. Rugomera. I think I'll have to take one last question, and it seems like we are running short of time. We still have a few things to do. So I will now read this question from Rebecca Gianotti, and the question says, did you only work with the communities that had registered users, or did you also work with the communities that didn't have a registered entity and then helped them to register one? Again, I'll send this question to Megan. Please, Megan.
Yeah, thanks, Bigambo. So we did work with schemes that did not have a registered council or Sibuso and supported them to both form and register in many cases. So, and just, you know, these are community organizations, and a lot of people change in the leadership. So most of them really needed to be reformed or trained at some point along the way. So.
Okay, thank you, Megan. And as I mentioned earlier, you're asking very interesting questions, and we'll be happy to continue answering your questions. So I will encourage you to still continue sending your questions to my email, which I have provided, and we will also respond in due course. Now, in the meantime, let us move to the last activity of our webinar today. And this is some few remarks from USAID's COR. This is Francis, and Francis will then invite Terhi, the Economic Growth Director, to close our webinar. Francis, please, welcome.
Thanks, Bigambo, and thanks to the entire WARIDI team and the Ministry of Water for organizing this webinar. Yeah, my name's Francis Mtitu. I'm the WASH Project Management Specialist at USAID Tanzania. For the past 4 years, I was really very privileged to be part of this great team of professionals that has been that's led by Tetra Tech, and my role mainly was to oversee the implementation of the WARIDI activity on behalf of USAID Tanzania. A lot has been presented by the great presenters, and I'm happy to say that I think we have together achieved a lot during this time, which maybe we could not have said all of the good work that this activity has done and contributed to the water sector here in Tanzania. But I wanted to highlight some of the key outstanding contribution that here at USAID Tanzania, I think, and globally, we are seeing the contribution of the WARIDI activity to the water sector in Tanzania. One, I think they have spoken very well about the water sector. I mean, the improving access to water supply. And I think all of us can agree that putting water infrastructure like boreholes, water tanks, installing pumps, these are kind of intervention that everyone can do it. I think the uniqueness of this intervention done by WARIDI is the way they started focusing on strengthening the institutions that are responsible for sustaining the WASH services. We have heard about the the also setting funds for operation and maintenance ahead of time, ensuring community participation. I think these are really ingredients towards sustaining the supported infrastructure. Another outstanding area which we are seeing is working with the government of Tanzania institutions. I think WARIDI has laid a very good foundation on ensuring that the rural water agents, the districts, the urban water utilities, they are taking leadership in implementing the WASH intervention. So WARIDI has been there to help the districts, to help them translate their plans into action, and are of course looking on gaps in terms of resources, gaps in terms of capacity, and building that capacity for those institutions to take leadership on implementing the WASH intervention. The third one outstanding, which we are proud to mention today, is the introduction of rural water supply treatment system. I think for colleagues from Tanzania will agree with me that it's very rare to find a rural water supply with a treatment system. You would find this one maybe in urban setting, but it's very rare. So WARIDI took that initiative, introduced the treatment system, used the appropriate technology that can be taken care by the users at the local level, of course, with some support from the districts or from RUWASA. And the last one, which I think has been said by all the presenters, is amplifying the importance of managing the country water resources. Water resources management, I think, in many countries are not given the weight it deserves. Most of the governments are focusing on abstracting the resources for domestic use and for other uses. And nobody is talking about how much resources are we having today. What will that resources be available for the future generation? So I think, as mentioned by Dr. George, this is very important. It's very important to the government of Tanzania. It's important to all of us in the sector, ensuring that all the decision making relating to the use of water resources is informed by up-to-date data and information. And we are very proud of WARIDI taking leadership on this one. And yeah, as Dr. George has mentioned, this kind of intervention, the modern science, the equipment, the approach that WARIDI has been applying to these two basins, the Ministry of Water is now happy to take it across all the rest of the basin. So with these few regards, I wanted again to thank WARIDI and the presenters for this great work. And before we close, I wanted to take this opportunity to welcome our Office Director, Terry Majanen, for the closing remark. Yeah, thanks all, and welcome, Terry.
Thank you so much, Francis, for those excellent remarks. And I can't add very much because those are great. But I did want to say a couple of things in the last minute or so. And first of all, thank the wonderful presenters. So Dr. Rugomera from the Ministry of Water, and Asha and Megan. And of course, thank you to Bigambo for the excellent facilitation of this meeting. All development, I think everyone on this call agrees that all development is important, but there's just something about water. And it's very, very powerful to help people access safe water in their communities. And sometimes we're doing this for the very first time. And when you visit these communities, as Francis has, as Boniface has, as of course our project team has in our front office, you really see the tangible and immediate difference in the quality of people's lives when they get access to water. And this difference is especially powerful for women, children, and young people. We've heard about the different focus areas of WARIDI, including services, private sector, gender and youth, and of course, mainly governance in this presentation. And as many of you have noted, there have been many, many significant successes. So this entire group of people should be very proud. I'll end where Andy, our mission director, started, and that is that partnerships are the foundation of our joint success. These partnerships we've had with the government of Tanzania at various levels, communities, water boards, and many other partners has been invaluable. And it's been especially critical in terms of the community buy-in that Megan talked about. And these strong partnerships are critical for the sustainability of these interventions, as Dr. Rugomera noted. So I will end there with a big thank you to our Government of Tanzania partners, to Bigambo and the excellent WARIDI team, to Francis and Boniface as the USAID managers of the activity. And finally, I would just like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to what we've been doing in Tanzania. We hope that it has been useful. And I was looking through the attendance list earlier, and I have to say that it's very nice to see some old friends and of course many new ones. I will end there. Back to you, Bigambo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terhi. And we are now coming to the end of our webinar. And also, just on behalf of WARIDI, to thank all participants for their time, and for also those who asked questions. We want to guarantee you that we are still open for any additional questions, and we'll be happy to answer those. So with those few words, I want again to thank you and wish you a very nice evening for those in Tanzania, and a very nice morning for those who are in the US and elsewhere. So thank you very much, and have a nice time.